Okay, feel free to holiday drop it. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm John Arola. That's not the important part, but we got it out of the way. More importantly, joined on the first hour of the Power Panel by Francesca Fiorentini, who's always on Mondays with the Damage Report with me. Great to have you here.
Hey.
And Nina Turner as well, who joins me on Tuesdays on the Damage Report. It's like the beginning of a week here on the Power Panel today. Thanks for being here, Nina.
Yeah, it's good to be with both you and Francesca.
Glad to have you here.
I like saying that, John. Francesca.
It is a cool name. I've considered changing mine.
That is now my new ringtone. Got it. Nina Turner saying my name. Done and done.
When you hear the beep, leave a message for Francesca. Okay, I think we're gonna have some fun. I was a little bit worried. This is a little bit of a rough week, but you know what we're gonna do? We're going to treat it like a Christmas tree and burn it down, okay? We're gonna set this thing on fire, talk about a lot of stuff. Through the course of this hour, we're gonna talk about how the economy is actually doing. People are frustrated, should they be? The Biden White House doesn't think so. We'll give their case. We've got updates on some major unionization efforts, arguments about whether the rich should face higher taxation being conducted entirely within the Wyden household, so that'll be fun. And how bad was the burning down of that tree? Some think it was a historic evil. We'll describe that a little bit later on. But that said, we should get started. You two ready to do this thing?
Let's rock and roll, baby.
Okay, let's have a little bit of fun. You can't turn on the news without hearing about how inflation is up, and certainly people are feeling frustrated about the state of the economy, the state of Biden's first term. He made many promises and doesn't really seem to be coming through on them. Well, the Biden White House thinks that this is unfair and you need to change your tune a little bit. So they've dispatched Ron Klain as well as some new advertisements to try to convince you that things are actually going a little bit better, turn those polls around. First, here is the White House Chief of Staff.
There's a lot of talk about how the economy is doing. Here are a few key facts that show the economy is growing and recovering under President Biden. Last week, the government reported that the unemployment rate's down to 4.2%. That's 3 years faster than experts predicted it would happen before we passed the rescue plan back in March. How many jobs? We've created 6 million jobs this year. That's more than any president in history has created in his first year in office. One reason we've created so many jobs, last year at this time, no Americans were fully vaccinated. Today, over 70% of all adults in this country are fully vaccinated. Getting America vaccinated is getting America back to work. A year ago, there were over 21 million people on unemployment. Today, that number's down to just over 2 million. Amazing progress in a year. And the recovery goes beyond jobs. Look at this chart on retail sales, up $90 billion since last year. That's an economy that's humming.
Okay, that is an economy that's humming. It's not just humming, it's also clapping, and I think it's tap dancing, actually. The economy is doing a lot of moving and making a lot of noise. So there were a lot of noises there, a lot of facts there. And I think we all know that nothing changes the mind of the American people than a politician standing next to charts that they're moving through. But he brought up a couple of good points. Let's start with you, Nina. What did you think about that? Is this gonna get through to people? Do you think that that was a fair assessment of their performance in this first year of Biden's term?
We're not gonna argue the numbers, John, but if you ask me, is that going to get through to the people? Hell no. First
there was
of all,
music.
Don't just tell me. I gotta feel it. There was nothing there. And my question would be: is humming for whom becomes the question. We know that within this economy, the people who are reaping the biggest benefit is certainly the people who always reap the biggest benefit, and that is the ultra wealthy. When you have to pay more for gas, when you have jobs that you got to fight to just get a living wage, when there's nowhere in this country where minimum wage where somebody who's being paid minimum wage can afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Houston, or let me just say DC, we have a problem. And my last point, pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Francesca?
I mean, I have to say, as someone who's been like really wondering why the Biden administration hasn't been singing their own victories and really trying to like, talk about the wins in the face of bad polling, et cetera. I'm like A for effort, but like D+ for execution. I think this is that like everyone trying to bite off Bernie Sanders style, where it's like all we got to do is be straightforward and have a little flip chart. And it's like, yeah, Bernie does that because he's like, that's why we have to tax billionaires out of existence. Like it's good because it's actually real, but
because it's him.
Exactly, and it's Bernie, and he's like a legit grump. Whereas like Ron Klain being like, this is Robert Reich, but not as good, but and like worse animations. Like get Olivia Rodriguez in there, or even better, screw the celebrities, get an actual worker, get someone who was able to stay afloat, who was able to go back to work, who got vaccinated, who feels safe. Let's talk to real people. You don't have to completely gussy it up and make it, super slick. Real people exist and they're out there. Talk to them.
Yeah, and then I think you could also, maybe you could appeal to Nina there a little bit by, sure, run through your numbers, and that's true, and those are good. We do have more vaccination, although when you compare the numbers now to the numbers a year ago, literally everyone in the room I'm in right now said, but there was no vaccine last year, so that's obviously dishonest. You could still talk about the numbers, but be clear about it and be truthful about it. And so talk about all of what you've done, but you also have to acknowledge all of what remains to be done. And if you do that, then you can talk about those who are standing in the way of some of the aid. That's certainly true. You can point out the Republicans in the Senate. You should also probably cast a little bit of a light on some of the Democratic senators that are making it so difficult to actually accomplish anything. But then you would probably also have to acknowledge that, look, if people are suffering, you could make a chart out of like student loan debt. The bar would be really high. It could be lower. I wonder who's stopping it from getting lower. So, and that's why they're not really answering all of the concerns. A few of the macroeconomic concerns are there, but not really getting down into the granular experience of people, working people's lives that Nina, that you were talking about a moment ago.
Yeah, John, I mean, you really do have to feel it. And as we are saying, the numbers are exactly what they are. We get it. Okay, got that checked off the box, but that in and of itself is not going to move the people who are suffering the most. They need to feel it. And to the extent that they are not feeling it, John, to your point, it is a much better story to tell, to say, but I still get, even with all of these gains, I am working as hard as I can, and I'm gonna continue to work even harder because I know that some of you are not feeling this at all. This is why I want to tax the ultra wealthy. This is why I want to get more shots in arms. This is why I want to, save the environment. I mean, that's the kind of stuff they just, come on, tell the truth now.
Yes, this is why we need to pass the Build Back Better Act, right? It feels like an explainer video directed at like only the New York Times editorial board. Like it's like just for op-ed writers of the Washington Post and nobody else. Like why? So it's and you're totally right. Like it doesn't lay blame at the feet of Republicans for stalling and yet claiming victory on, let's say, the American Rescue Plan, right? And trying to tout that around. It again, and look, I don't mean, reducing yourself to Trumpian tactics, but man, when it's a win, it's a win. And when you've got adversaries working against the American people, you've got adversaries working against the American people. And yes, Democrats have a lot of that blame, but like you're doing a political propaganda ad, man. Like talk about who's actually in the way.
Yes.
That's a great point.
That's it. Call them out.
What's that?
Name them. Call them out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's not their style in the Biden White House. Barely naming and calling out the Republicans, let alone the Democrats. And I also want to acknowledge.
Unless they're progressive.
Right.
Unless they're progressive, then they get called out and
that's true.
And everything.
You do, yes, you do certainly see that. They definitely, it is a difficult task to I don't know, to communicate about this. Like there's no, like I'm thinking, okay, how did Trump and the Republicans back when he was in charge, how did they communicate with their base? They never had to do a version of this because they didn't get into office with anything having to do with the economy. they never had a plan to improve people's lives, so they never were actually called to answer for it. It's really one of the benefits of the modern day Republican Party. They get put into office to stop kids from reading about like Martin Luther King Jr. or whatever. That's it, to protect Dr. Seuss. There's no expectation that there's gonna be more jobs, so when jobs don't come and wages don't go up, they never really promised those things anyway. I never saw Trump having to give like a desperate press conference to get through to them, or dispatch Steve Bannon or something with charts about jobs, because that's so, like the gap between what they were elected to do and the expectations for them, it has nothing to do with it. So, but it's not impossible. Bernie Sanders does do stuff like that. I think Katie Porter does, get through in these sorts of things. So it's not impossible if you have the right people on your side.
Yeah, but it's very natural for them. And I'm gonna push back a little bit. Difficult, when you're the president of the United States of America, when you have the privilege to work in this cabinet, when you have the privilege to be on his team, difficult is not being able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment on minimum wage. Difficult is not having paid family leave. Difficult is not having Medicare for all. Difficult is not knowing where your next meal is gonna come from. Difficult is trying to make $1 out of 15 cents because gas prices are so damn high that you can't afford to fill up your tank. That's difficult. Difficult is knowing that the moratorium on student loan repayments might go away. That's difficult.
Nina,
they don't live in difficult.
I'm gonna have to push back against you. I feel worse for Ron Klain. I'm kidding. Anyway, you're 100% right, obviously. Let's go to one more video though. So this is the Democrats' organized Twitter account. So they wanted to get something social going. And so you're gonna see the job growth there. Man, that does not make George W. look very good. Okay, so look, I don't know, maybe I'm just an ass. Sure, those numbers are true, but you're also coming out of most of the pandemic. So I don't like when presidents try to take too much unilateral credit for major moves in the economy. And I also don't generally think it makes much sense to blame them too much for large scale moves in the economy. It's just sort of a game that they play, where I think the media's time and people's attention would be better spent are in direct areas where they've made promises and that they have power. Like if you want to give him some credit for the stimulus that they did at the beginning of the year, I think that makes sense. They did that. You could also justifiably criticize him for cutting it in half, basically at the last minute. You could give them credit for doing the child tax credit, or you could criticize them for seemingly being ready in about a month or 2 weeks at this point to see it lapse. And you can certainly criticize him for not unilaterally doing what he said he would do on student loan debt. So they like to zoom way out into an area where trying to link the president to the economy in either direction feels really unfair, but that also conveniently absolves them of the areas where they can have a direct impact.
100%, and also it is without context, which is exactly what you're saying. It's like within the context of that job creation, it isn't really fair to compare it to other presidents, but also your context is unprecedented and unique in that you inherited a pandemic that had killed 500,000 people at that time, and a president who was sowing disbelief and doubt in a vaccine, in the COVID-19 virus in and of itself, who may or may not have had COVID when he debated you on stage. And you've got nothing to say to that. You can't say, and you're not even claiming, again, something that handed to you, that the former president has blood on his hands, that you're taking the pandemic seriously. You're taking the economic impact of the pandemic seriously. Instead, it is a without context graph, again, designed for like, I don't know, Thomas Friedman to be like, no, I guess there's jobs. I'll write a positive op-ed and whatever he does, and you're not actually speaking to what is on all of our minds, which is how are we going into the future? We almost lost our democracy and our livelihoods and our lives, right? So what is the future of public health care? What does that look like, given that our country has been so unprepared, so clearly unprepared for something like a pandemic?
Yeah.
Right? Answer these questions. Instead, it's like, oh, hey, look, I patched up the hole in the Titanic. And you're like, I guess.
That's a start. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, you referenced some of what has come out recently about their plans to just dispense with the last vestiges of democracy. We will be talking about that in the second hour of the Young Turks. So there will be a little bit of that. Nina, any final comments on their attempt to reshape public opinion around the performance of the economy?
They need to do it better. Let's send out the messengers that really can get the message out. And then it's what we all three of us have been saying. They really have to acknowledge that pain is still there, but they're trying their hardest to make progress that people can feel. You got to give them something they can feel.
I want to ask one final quick question. So I always am curious about areas where I have a blind spot or I exist in a big bubble, and I feel like both of you are both willing to and might delight in pointing out my naivete. So it feels like if you were to make a list of the 5 or maybe even 10 best communicators on the Democratic side, I feel like all of them are progressives that they don't really want to have anything to do with.
Yes.
Is that unfair?
Yeah,
or like people really like fired up by Amy Klobuchar speeches and things like that?
Wow. Whoa.
That's cold. That's cold.
She tells good speeches about the snow occasionally. She does.
No. You're right. No, they're all on the best communicators are on the progressive side because they really communicate from an area, I think, of passion, compassion, and lived experience. And the best people to tell those types of stories, like a Congresswoman Cori Bush, for example, who was homeless, who had to sleep in their car, who understands domestic violence by lived experience, all of those things. Those tend to be the better messengers. Those people who are still connected to a lived experience that is not just one of being in wine caves with wealthy people.
Well, you don't like the Nancy and Chuck sort of like side by sides and just like sort of competing on who is like paler and staler, as they sort of do a duo act. I love it.
I want a
Ice cream
t-shirt
in your freezer,
Oh God,
that work.
We got to get the pale and stale 2024 shirts going.
Pale and stale. You're right. Like, I just want to say this is a week, obviously, where you saw the squad come out and very, in a robust way, defend Representative Ilhan Omar and condemn Lauren Boebert's Islamophobic comments. And every time I see Representative Ayanna Pressley speak, I am like, that's presidential. Like she just has this gravitas that is like unmatched. And and they're all effective communicators in different ways. But like Ayanna Pressley, and it's not just, it's more than how you present yourself, it's more than how you talk. But honestly, the way she talks and presents herself is just like, damn, like
it's the spirit, Francesca. I mean, you're tapping into it's a spirit that they're not just doing this to do it. They actually have an emotional connection to what they are putting down.
Yeah.
And that is what was missing in what the chief of staff did. It was this, oh my God, we got to get out here and enumerate for the people all the great things that we're doing. And it's just check the box, versus people coming up there saying, hey, this is what it is. This is what we're standing up for. This is why I'm standing up for this. This is why we are fighting. And this is where we are going.
Yeah,
totally.
Agreed.
Yeah, the difference.
Okay, I think on that note, we're gonna take our first break. When we come back, we're gonna give you a little bit of an update on the Kellogg attacks against their striking workers, some success for unionization as well. We'll have that for you after this. Welcome back, everyone. Let's see what's been going on out there in the audience. Dirge says in the member comments, all it takes for Republicans to believe Trump was creating jobs was for him to tweet jobs, jobs, jobs. Yeah, I saw a video, I'd forgotten about this. It was, I think Jon Stewart had a great video compilation of politicians sort of like talking about jobs and like blue collar workers and the working class in a really shallow way. And Trump at one point like is just chanting like, I love the blue collar workers, you know, in a sense I consider myself a blue collar worker. And then he does like the shoveling motion. It's just why can't people see through this stuff? Like
just the most Zoolander moment ever.
Yeah.
He's in a hard hat, like
his
doing
hands
blue steel.
literally don't have creases. Like it's just one smooth expanse of pale white flesh. Check his palms. Check him. Anyway.
Yeah.
Not Ted Cruz's though. The Dragon Who Says Knee says, if this isn't your dream power panel, you are wrong. And the Dragon Who Says Knee.
Somebody.
Exactly. The Dragon Who Says Knee is right. Thader Goddess says, talking about how the economy is looking up while we're looking at a chart is trending down sends a mixed message. That is true. It was like a job unemployment claims, but yeah, it does look like something's going down. Doesn't matter what the chart says, it'll contradict what you're saying. I mean, you could format the chart in a way that makes sense, but anyway, Eclectic Mistletoe says, I like the little name change there. It says, I think people will be less likely to vote for Democrats after seeing whatever the hell that ad was. I don't know. I can imagine the sort of people that are retweeting that. I think that they were gonna be pretty supportive of the Democrats anyway. I don't know if it's gonna have a lot of crossover appeal necessarily. John Bogino, love the name, says the economy is humming for rich people. Yeah, I can imagine them sipping cognac and humming. Yep. In the super chats, Peter Hamby says, playing the song and dance, they Biden the truth for all, hiding scrutiny. That right there was a haiku, and I just mixed it, but I'll get your next one, don't worry. Arstone says, when you are POTUS, you literally have the answers to the test. You choose not to make the lives of the American people better. Democrats operate at half measures and Republicans operate at 0% measures or worse. Yeah.
Come on, that's it.
Yep, they can't be surprised, and they probably aren't. Yep. What if there was an alternative? What if we could just like give us 4 years, one term in our life of an actual progressive president? Like and establishment, I know that you're terrified and you should be a little bit scared. You shouldn't be 100% scared. He's gonna be hemmed in on all sides by the rest of the establishment coming together. And a lot of what he or she would pass would eventually get overturned by the ultra conservative Supreme Court. But could we at least taste it a little bit? It would be an interesting experience.
Amen. Let's try it out.
Let's try in 2024.
Let's try it on.
I have a few ideas.
Even if we gotta take it off, let's try
it on.
Yeah, well, this is getting spicy on a Friday. Okay, we got more news coming up, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, everyone. It's me, John, and Nina, and Francesca. And with that, why don't we jump back into the news? It's certainly a case of good news and bad news on the labor front recently. We're gonna start with the bad, and the bad is very much Kellogg's, which decided that after 1,400 of their striking workers turned down a proposed deal, they decided, yeah, this negotiation thing has been real and all, but let's just get rid of all of those people and hire on replacement workers. And that apparently is what they're choosing to do. Since October, these workers have been striking in 4 different cities. And largely, there's a number of different reasons, including being massively overworked during the pandemic. But in particular, for the last 6 years, there's been what's called a 2-tier employment system where there's different levels of benefits for people who've been around for different periods of time. The proposed deal that came about after about 2 months of these employees striking would have revised that system, but wouldn't actually have gotten rid of it, which is what these employers were working towards. So the workers turned down the deal. I believe we have a little bit of video demonstrating this.
That's why we are striking, because we want the better pay, pension for everybody. It's not for only one group.
I have this job because people like my dad that worked here before me for 34 years didn't give up stuff coming in.
Exactly, and so they want to continue to push. I mean, this is the process of how strikes work. It's not you get one choice and then that's it, one deal and then that's it. But that's what Kellogg's wants. They know that these workers are willing to strike for longer. They've got the durability to push for a better deal, and they want to just end the process right now. Francesca, why don't we start with you? What did you think about Kellogg's move to fire all these people?
I mean, I like, it's not surprising to me at all, and it is a moment though, because to fire, to make this move in a time of increased worker power and increased consciousness among blue collar workers around this country, and the factory jobs that are left in this country. It's bold, right? And it shows that Kellogg's thinks that they can get away with it. It's no money, it's no sweat off their backs. They can take the heat, they can take the negative press, because John Iderola needs his Pop-Tarts, and so you got to keep the ovens cracking. I just had to get you there, buddy. You got to boycott.
Well, what you don't know is I announced earlier this week that I was boycotting Pop-Tarts. So you're a little bit behind the news cycle there, Francesca. Now, people at my job have been taking the Pop-Tarts that were still around and leaving them around for me to try to break my resolve. But like the workers, I am going to be strong.
You will not be broken.
I'm try not to.
But yes, I mean, it is a heartless move, and we'll see what happens, right? Like public opinion, and this is the thing: are mainstream outlets going to be covering this? Are they going to be talking to the workers? More Perfect Union, just hats off to them for covering strike after strike and just doing incredible work on the ground. I would like to see that from mainstream outlets, more of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Francesca is right. It's definitely a heartless. I love the whole all for one and one for all mentality. Is what the workers at John Deere did, as they held out that two-tier, more workers with more seniority caring about the type of wages and benefits that the workers that are working by their side and who come right after them will have into the future. That is what true solidarity and leadership looks like. And I want to see the federal government jump up in here. You know what? Them school breakfasts, Kellogg's, them products, the Tony the Tiger, the crackers and all that. Guess what? We will not be purchasing any more of your products until you do right by these workers. See, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. Let's start taking the public contracts away from them if they want to treat workers like that. These workers have children in the schools, in the very schools that serve oftentimes these cereals for breakfast. So yeah, let's deal with them. No more public contracts.
That's a great point, and during the break we were like joking about like having an actual progressive president for once. Like imagine the effect it would have on the labor movement. That like if Bernie Sanders was president, he would do what Obama said he was going to do, was put on his marching shoes and stand on the picket line. But like Bernie does do that, and members of the squad do that. They're supportive right now of unionization efforts.
That's it, John. I definitely have to jump. I mean, being with the senator for both of his presidential candidacies, he definitely has been on even before he started running for president. Let's be clear, check the receipts. He was on the picket lines with the workers, but certainly during 2016 and 2020, the senator never failed to be on the picket lines with workers. The senator went down to Bessemer, Alabama, for example. So did I. People like Congresswoman Cori Bush, other members of the squad. People like our dear friend, Michael Render, Killer Mike, Mr. Glover, Dr. Cornel West. Y'all see the pattern? We're naming all either progressive activists or progressive thought leaders or progressive elected officials. That is the pattern. And hell yeah, the senator would be right there as president by their side. Nothing shaking. And Cenk and I talked about this last night on the power hour, talking about the power panel, power hour. But some of the things that can be done, and one of the things is, hey, CEO Kellogg's, I'm about to have a press conference. Now, either you will be there as the hero or the villain. Cenk and I were talking about that last night about some other group of people. The same playbook. You call these folks up. You're hurting American workers. You're hurting the workers. You're hurting my agenda. You're hurting the people that I was elected to serve. So I tell you what, about to have a press conference. Either you're gonna be the hero or you're gonna be the villain. Which one you want? I'm giving you a chance.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because I feel like on unions, Biden is actually not as far to the right as he is on other issues, right? As he might be on student loan debt, or he might be on, raising corporate taxes. It seems like something like the PRO Act, out of all the things we need to pass, might have more of a chance. And I'm not holding my breath at all. But the president's statement when the Bessemer, Alabama vote was coming down in the Amazon factory warehouse was really surprising, actually, and did make an impact. And I think we have to look for those openings, even though we're sort of greeted with a wall of status quo-ness right now. And I think that one of those openings could be around labor. And I think that the NLRB is starting to make calls that are much more progressive. Looking at the head, Lauren McFerrin is the head of it right now. She's been promoted from within, but she was appointed by Obama, and she's doing some good stuff. So it's like, that's the kind of moves. Remember, these folks are all appointed by the president. That's, I think, where we could see some more progressive movement, hopefully, from this president.
Yeah.
Very good point. Yeah.
Let's briefly move to a little bit of good news on this area. Yesterday, workers in the Buffalo area successfully voted to unionize a Starbucks. They voted 2-1 to do so, and that is difficult literally in almost any company in America, but particularly in Starbucks. Starbucks has not had an amazing track record in welcoming unionization efforts in the past. Back in 2019, in fact, we have a write-up here about some of what they'd done to try to stop one of their stores in Philadelphia from unionizing, saying that the ALJ found that Starbucks closely monitored public social media activity, attempted to gauge employees' support for the employees' efforts, unlawfully spied on protected conversations one of the employees initiated with coworkers. And so they've also used tactics like shutting down some stores so that employees have to change from working in one store to flooding into another, which can potentially upset months or possibly years of organizing in anticipation of unionization efforts. And we also want to talk about one thing. There's an individual, Brittany Harrison, a Starbucks worker in Arizona, who was fired and says that she believes the reason she was fired was because she recorded a conversation, a company conversation that was critical of the unionization effort, specifically in Buffalo, the successful one from yesterday. Let's show you a little bit of that video.
The meeting started with my district manager saying, let's talk about what's going on in Buffalo. It kind of all unraveled from there, and they started talking about the union, why the union is bad, why the union doesn't align with Starbucks missions and values, why partners who want to be part of the union aren't true partners to Starbucks.
So look, over the years, we've talked about a lot of different techniques that these companies use. There was also recently, Francesca's gonna get a kick out of that. There was a great episode of John Oliver like a month or two ago where he talked about a few of the most common tactics that are used. And you see them cropping up in these recent attempts at unionization, being used at Kellogg's, being used by Starbucks. And so luckily, at least in this one store, it was successful. And the idea is that not only is that good for the employees working at the particular store, but might be inspirational for others in the area, perhaps around the country, who are looking to unionize at Starbucks. We'll certainly have to see. But it is good news that, especially considering what happened with Kellogg's, that we have a little bit of good news coming out of this one store.
Very good news. And the spark is just beginning. I mean, this workers are on fire right now. They totally understand. I think one good residual, if there are good things we can find in the pandemic, is that workers are starting to stand up and really demand what they deserve. They're mad as hell. They're not going to take it anymore. And so for every union that is created and for union workers who are striking right now, all of that makes the whole and will continue to push up wages and work conditions for all, both unionized workers and non-unionized workers. So yeah, I'm glad we got a little good news this evening.
Take that, Howard Schultz. Ha, ha, ha. That'll teach you to run for president again. You unicorn frappuccino of a man. No, it's such a weird
That sounds kind
guy.
of cool, actually.
For sure, yeah. I mean, again, I was saying about the National Labor Relations Board. I think this is an instance where they made a good judgment, good call, which is that one, one store could unionize without the other stores in the city. And that's really good because it would have been way harder to get all of those workers in the other stores to agree, yes, we want a union, but it allows still that momentum to continue. So of course, I do think that this will inspire other stores, not just in Buffalo, but around the country to also unionize. And that's how it starts. And Starbucks is so interesting, right? Because their whole brand, right? Like, how long has Fox News been like, you mochaccino drinking, venti, blah, blah, blah. It's always like the elites, of Starbucks. And they, whether it's their lighting or their sort of soft jazz or the fact that they were like paying people $9 an hour for the first time. And this was years ago, right? Yeah. Now they're not even paying $15 yet. But like, they've always prized themselves on being kind of the liberal, cool employers. Hey, you get a free Spotify account when you become not a worker, but a partner here at Starbucks. Like, no, bro, just pay us and allow us to form a union. Like, don't make us work long hours. Don't like change up our schedules. Basic things that service workers know, how difficult it is. Put someone in place so that we don't have to enforce mask regulations. Get someone who's like checking people at the door, et cetera. All these things that, companies, not just in minimum wage companies, but even big tech companies are like, you get free haircuts. No, you can't unionize. Like, no, you're not gonna buy us off with some of these weirdo perks. Just let us form a union.
Yeah, little known fact actually, if you pay people more, they can then buy Spotify and or haircuts if that's what they want to spend their money on actually.
And you were reading my mind on that one, John. I was about to say that and or hell, give us the Spotify haircut and the raise. We'll take it all.
Yep. And some healthcare and childcare. Thanks.
Yes. Okay, well, let's talk about the opposite side of this. We're gonna talk a little bit about taxation. Although it hasn't really gone anywhere, there's been more of a conversation, or at least a willingness to begin the conversation of higher taxes on the wealthy in the past couple of years. Even a few whispers about wealth taxes that thus far haven't gone anywhere. But this debate is happening, and in fact, it's even happening inside of the houses of the wealthy and powerful. In this case, we're gonna talk about the Wyden household. First of all, you have Senator Ron Wyden. You also have his son, Adam Wyden, who's a self-described libertarian and founder of a hedge fund, the ADW Capital Partners. And so they disagree about taxation. We're gonna describe how that works in practice. ADW Capital Partners might seem like it would be one of the places that Democrats on the Senate Finance Committee would be looking to increase taxes a little bit. It's very small but growing fast, $330 million in assets. Its corporate address is in New York, but it's incorporated in Delaware, doing business in Florida, and has an offshore feeder corporation shielding some of its clients from US taxation. So, just normal American capitalist stuff. Meanwhile, Ron Wyden, the father, he's the chairman of the Democratic Senate Finance Committee, and on some areas of taxation has been in support of doing a little bit more. As President Biden's $2.2 trillion social safety net and climate change bill has been languishing in the Senate, he's kept alive proposals his son has spoken out against. One would tax the annual wealth gains of about 700 American billionaires, some of whom were shown in a series of ProPublica reports to have paid a tiny fraction of their wealth in taxes, while some paid no income taxes at all. I want to let you know about how extreme some of these examples are. So according to Forbes, America's richest 25 people saw their worth rise a collective $401 billion between 2014 and 2018. They paid a total of $13.6 billion in federal income taxes in those 5 years. That's about 3.4% as a true tax rate on income across multiple years. So clearly they're getting away with murder, but the son is not happy about his father supporting these sorts of things. Recently, Ron Wyden tweeted in response to Elon Musk pretending as if he was gonna do a poll on selling Tesla stock and that was gonna determine whether he did it or not. It was a total sham. That's not why he was doing it at all. Ron Wyden tweeted, whether or not the world's wealthiest man pays any taxes at all shouldn't depend on the results of a Twitter poll. It's time for the billionaire's income tax. In response to that, his son tweeted, why does he hate us, the American dream, so much? Reality is most legislators have never built anything except literally my body. So I guess it's easier to mindlessly and haphazardly try and tear stuff down. So yeah, and he apparently had no problem with Elon Musk bizarre comments that he was making on Twitter in reference to his father. So anyway, Adam Wyden notably is not a billionaire. He's a millionaire, but we know what America is like. We ignore our own economic interests because we always imagine someday we're gonna be Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or whatever. We're gonna have billions of dollars, so screw everyone until we get there. But anyway, I just thought that this was interesting that you could see these wealthy people duking it out over this issue in one family. What do you make of all this?
Must be nice. I mean, really, that rare air up there, that's number one. Number two is how dare he talk down to his father on Twitter like that. Senator Wyden is absolutely correct. Tax the rich. Go to your room, because he's a brat. Why do they hate us so much? Go to your room.
Probably his many rooms.
Public.
I would guess.
His many rooms. How dare he step up against his dad like that in public?
Yep.
I feel like, yeah, Adam Wyden just wants to say like, oh, do you know who my father is? Oh, wait a minute, it's you. Never got me anything except for one hedge fund. Oh God, Johnny got like 3 hedge funds by the time he was 30. Like it's just so weird. It's so like, who's biting the hand that feeds them? It's very bizarre and so sad and very Succession, because I'm obsessed with that show. This is like Roman Roy, big Roman Roy energy, or maybe it's Connor Roy, big Connor Roy energy coming out of Adam Wyden. And also like, yeah, your dad's I don't even know. And here's the thing about Propublica. Every time I read those long articles, I have to just take like a half an hour quick cry, just a little half an hour pillow cry, all the makeup into the pillow. It's great. And then you're like, I come to the same conclusion every time. People like Adam Wyden, or who earn less than that, but sort of like a couple million, a mil even, they should be so much angrier at the 700 billionaires than they are, because they're paying far more in taxes proportional to their wealth than the billionaires are. And yet they identify more with billionaires when they're never gonna be a billionaire. You're not gonna get that much money. Oh yeah, you're gonna crap on Starbucks workers and Kellogg's workers, call all the workers lazy, but you actually have more in common with them than you do with billionaires. Why? Because you're paying more proportional your own tax rate. You're paying a fairer tax rate.
I mean, look, it's a long shot to become a billionaire, but I think he has hope. He probably thinks if he can get his hands on one of those really cool NFTs of a cartoon monkey smoking a cigar or something, that could be worth billions someday. And honestly, I went to Adam Wyden's Twitter account. So we have one tweet, let's bring this up. It's him not making the point that he thinks he's making in response to Ron Wyden's tax proposals. He tweeted, thankfully, I think I can compound faster than my dad and his cronies confiscate it. So you're literally saying that without any actual labor on your part, the baked in investments you have will generate wealth that no wealth tax could actually keep pace with, which does not make the anti-tax point that you think you're making. But if you go to his Twitter account, it's all this nonsense of cryptocurrencies. And I didn't see any ape photos, but I'm sure he'll have one sooner or later. It's all of this stuff that is even more removed from any actual labor or anything even indirectly having to do with the actual economy than past generations of wealthy individuals who were themselves out of touch and had no idea what the real world was like. Now, it's like even the real world was already vague for them. Now it's hidden behind acronyms and hashtags. They have no idea what any of this means. They feel no actual obligation or attachment to our society, let alone our economy or the continued function of our government. And this is literally a guy who has grown up in one of the families, like almost a dynasty. And so, I don't know, it makes me really worried about the future, that these people are gonna end up being very wealthy. And they're certainly tapped in to powerful individuals. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, wealthy, selfish as hell. And John, you were making a point I want to bring up, because I hope the folks who are joining us tonight got it when he said they've never built anything. And I think I heard you say that he gave him his very life. I mean, yeah, last time I checked, Ron, your dad had a hand in giving you life, building that. Hello. He's such an ingrate, disrespectful. Go to your room. Rooms.
Some guys will do anything to get on the Elon Musk, I don't know, what is it? The Elysium Tour, Cybertruck extravaganza.
The space ship.
SpaceX tour truck, I don't know. Just, the Elon Musk reply guy thirst is strong. And yes, it's Friday and you know who you are out there. And I'm talking to you. Give it up. Give it a rest. He doesn't love you. Let it go.
I used to think that the worst guys were guys whose whole personality is having a lot of Jordan Peterson's books or agreeing with everything that Joe Rogan says. But the Elon Musk people, they're worse. It's more pathetic.
Oh yeah.
Because first of all, he's never gonna love you. You're never gonna go to Mars with him. And if you if you stood, if you were in a room with him for 5 minutes, do you have any idea how boring he must be in person? Come on, how do you not see that? Anyway, we're gonna take a short break. When we come back, we're gonna talk about something that is, I wish was a little bit more boring. Unfortunately, it's incredibly important. SCOTUS updates on Texas's anti-abortion law and more besides, so don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Let's see what's going on out there, including with our new YouTube member, Claire France Perez. Thank you for being with us. Let's see, next TYT reporter in the member comments says, Starbucks has so many young workers. I think once the vote was scheduled, they knew what the result would be. I wish that it was that simple, but honestly, even at Starbucks, it's not. I mean, other Starbucks in New York had either had voted down unionization or currently having challenges to some of the votes. The anti-union propaganda is strong, and not just the hit of the propaganda when you try to unionize, but even young people have grown up maybe never hearing a positive thing said about unionization or the labor movement. If they listen to most politicians, certainly if they listen to the media, even just casual stuff in sitcoms, almost entirely negative. And that's been going on for far longer than these people have even been alive. That's one of the things we have to fight back against. Juggalo Jedi said, I just looked up all of Kellogg's brands and I'm done with all of them. Time to make my own waffles. That's actually one of the issues with the boycott. They own everything, seemingly. A lot of stuff. Occam's Taser says, can they really hire trained 1,400 people without the whole system falling apart under a slight breeze? I think in some cases they're going to be permanently hiring on the scabs that they'd had working while the strike was going on. And look, 1,400 workers is a lot, but a company the size of Kellogg's, it's probably not a massive percentage of their workforce. So it'll probably be difficult, but I don't know. They're willing to go to almost any length to stop the union from winning in this case, apparently. Chaplain Fred in the super chat says, love TYT and Senator Nina Turner, hello somebody, and Miss Fiorentini. I think Katie Porter would have been the perfect person with pop-up pictures and crayons. I think they're referencing the Ron Klain thing there. Give her a whiteboard.
She needs a few more committee appointments and then she'll accept.
Exactly.
And she'll do that.
Give it to her. YTP Renewed says, the trouble with going by lived experience is that stack the deck against any generalization that could only be pointed out by exceptions to it. I'm a little bit confused following the point, but thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate it. Jen, it's the end of the week. You sent that to me on a Monday. I'd totally be able to follow you, but I'm just sliding through to the weekend at this point. Gotta watch that episode of Wheel of Time. That's all I'm thinking about right now. Jen Hampton says.
Oh, go ahead.
No, what are you saying?
No, I was just gonna say we need people from more of a working class experience.
Yeah.
Lived experience coupled with other experiences. Yeah,
Definitely.
I'm not just saying that alone, but we have too many people who are disconnected from the real suffering that people face because either they themselves have never faced it or they're so far removed, they just have flat out forgotten.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Okay, we have time for I think 2 more stories. So stick around in another minute. We'll give you a little bit more news. Okay, everybody, we have just a little bit more time for this first hour, but don't worry, after that, we do have a second hour. Jared Jackson is gonna be here. I believe Ida Rodriguez as well as Ben Glebe are gonna be joining him for that second hour. And then also later on tonight, Brett Ehrlich will be doing an episode of Game Busters. I think they're gonna be playing Jackbox party games. So those are games that you can actually take part in. If you follow along on Twitch, you can actually play the game, you can influence what happens, and they always have a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that. With that, Francesca and Nina, why don't we talk about a couple more things? Time she is wasting. The US Supreme Court has once again kind of weighed in on the Texas anti-abortion law, their so-called bounty hunting law, allowing it to stay in place. The ban is still there, but there are a few exceptions, a few details that we should note. So they ruled today that abortion providers in Texas can challenge a state law banning most abortions after 6 weeks, allowing them to sue at least some state officials in federal court, despite the procedural hurdles imposed by the law's unusual structure, which we've talked about many times. But the Supreme Court refused to block the law in the meantime, saying that lower courts should consider the matter. So sort of delaying things. They know what they're doing. We got more details, but just really fast. They know what they're doing. They know what Texas is doing. Texas is doing this novel procedure of the whole bounty hunter thing, specifically to try to make it more difficult for courts to weigh in on this. But the end result is effectively nullifying more than a half century of Supreme Court precedent when it comes to reproductive rights. And there's not a single person in the country, and especially in the Supreme Court, that does not know that that is not just the effect, but the stated goal of this effort in Texas. So allowing the ban to continue is not only at least in the short term, rewarding the people that did this in Texas, but it's also gonna put some wind in the sails of those in other states, including in Ohio, who are considering a similar sort of law that will outlaw abortion in a similar way or accomplish other means. If you can do the bounty hunting thing where it's not the state technically that's getting involved for abortion, you can do it for all sorts of other pet issues that they've had issues with the Supreme Court on. So I wanna get both of your thoughts about this. The ban continues, but challenges can go forward, although we sort of also know what the Supreme Court would eventually end up saying if it works its way all the way up to the top.
Yeah,
go ahead, Francesca.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say it's the Supreme Court's way of being like, fight amongst yourselves. It's like the most I think we're already dismantling Roe. And it really basically is putting the onus on a lot of these abortion providers and women's healthcare providers to say, please be mired in lawsuits for the rest of your existence. So you basically don't have any money left to do the thing that you are trying to do, which is prevent women from dying and allowing them to have control over their own lives and bodies. No, please raise a bunch of money so you can fight this in court in that endless source of money. That's all it is. And you're hampering organizations, clinics with this law, and you're hampering the people who've been working on this issue for decades, who are day in and day out just completely exhausted, as I think we all are exhausted over this issue, which is why you have a law of the land, which is why, and we were talking a little bit of noise about Klobuchar, but I gotta say, she's been out in front on the idea of passing a federal law and further enshrining Roe v. Wade and further preventing any kind of any law from infringing on the right to have an abortion. And I think It is high time that we do that, however we do that. But this again is just the SCOTUS's way of being like states' rights / we know exactly what they're gonna do, which is take away the freedom to choose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Just wearing people down. They're trying to wear down the pro-choice side. And as Francesca laid out, just bleed them dry. Lawsuits are expensive and they take a very long time, which is why the Supreme Court said, well, you guys can sue them, but we're gonna uphold the decision. Allow the law to stand. It is ridiculous. And as somebody who, when I was in the Ohio Senate, certainly a pro-choice champion in that legislature, really standing up for women, was able to beat back the heartbeat bill, but which, John, you have laid out that Ohio probably will, 99.9% sure it is probably going to pass a bill like that. They've been itching rather to pass a bill like that for quite some time. And I really push back along with some other leaders in the legislature to really stand up for choice. That this is all this is. This is about choice. And the people who are against women having this kind of choice, maybe not all of them, but especially the ones in power who hold elected office, and especially on the GOP side, when they claim to be against big government, but they love government to be just the size to be able to fit into a woman's womb. That's they like that size.
Yeah.
They do.
And we've had cause over the past year, 4 years especially, to talk a little bit more about the state and nature of American democracy than before. You want to talk about something before it's finally gone. And there's a lot of things where it's seemingly irrelevant what the American people think. But in this particular case, like they're doing something incredibly radical, which is taking away women's rights that they've had for more than 40 years. So you would imagine that the bar would be very high to be able to do that. But we've already won on this issue in terms of public opinion. Like there's no debate about what the American people think about this. They don't support this. And the Democrats are in control. And yet, all around the country, more and more laws are infringing on women's rights. And we just sort of expect that a supermajority of the Supreme Court, all of them want to strip away women's rights, despite the fact that that is not at all where the American people are. So there's this massive, incredibly consequential life or death gap between what the American people think and have largely thought for literally decades, and what seems like an inevitability in terms of who's actually made it into government. Meanwhile, the Democrats are in charge. They've got a president, they got control of the Senate, and they seem to be either completely ignorant of the fact that all of this is happening, or they don't care at all. It's great that Amy Klobuchar wants to do the bill. That's great, they should do that. And then it's not gonna actually pass because Sinema and Manchin, others will be like, oh yeah, no, I think that women not getting like back alley abortions would be better, but I like the filibuster more than I like women having the ability to choose. They'll never have to actually go on TV and say that, but that is objectively, that is clearly what they are saying.
I mean, let's remember that only a few years ago, Nancy Pelosi said that you could be a Democrat and be anti-choice. Like, excuse me? What? And it's indicative of the ways that Democrats have been on their back heels on this issue for so long. They've been asleep at the wheel. Meanwhile, a Christian conservative, Christian nationalist, far right wing, obviously bastardizing the religion, have been slowly planting their attorneys to work their ways up, thanks to think tanks, thanks to dark money, to take over the Supreme Court. So what's our response? What, knit a pussy hat? I'm sorry, okay? They don't know, Democrats do not know what they're doing, and they're not serious about the issue. And we've been talking about income inequality. This is an income inequality issue. The numbers of women who have lost their jobs under the pandemic, the number of women who cannot access abortion, who are disproportionately poor, Black, and brown. We understand that this is another piece of the class warfare.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because wealthy women will continue and always have had access to reproductive health or abortion. Let's just go and call it what, legal, safe, and rare. That has been the position of this country, and it should continue to be the position of this country. And many of these people really don't care about life. They are pro-birth. And then when the baby is birthed, they don't give a damn. They won't give the parent paid family medical leave. They won't make sure that the parents have a minimum wage that they can. They don't give a damn. That's just it. This is all a facade. It's just all another measure of control. So again, those small government hypocrites and let's make government smaller, they are absolute hypocrites and do not care about that life once it's birthed into the world.
Yeah.
Don't care.
And
there's some women who need this procedure even just for strictly medical reasons too. I mean, Jesus, to be able to, in some states, the doctor will get a felony, locking up the woman, the mother. I mean, it is absolute insanity. And for Democrats to not give a care about who runs and is elected to state legislatures, this is why we are in this. This is why we got this problem right now, partly, is because all Democrats, not all, some of the mainline Democrats seem to only care about who's in the Congress and who's in the presidency. Meanwhile, getting our clocks clean on the state level of government.
Yes.
100%. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to thank both of you for joining.
I know.
What? I thought we had another story.
We do, but we're out of time, and like JR will punch me or something. You know how he is. He wants his whole hour. But I do know that both of you do other fine work. Francesca, what do you got on tap for Sunday's Bitchuation Room?
Yeah, Sunday at Franny Vio on YouTube. We're gonna talk to some progressive city council candidates here in Los Angeles. So
awesome.
Super excited for that. And then comedian Gareth Reynolds, who is awesome if you know his work from the Dollop podcast. But yeah, also check out the Twitchuation Room on Wednesdays from 1 to 3 Pacific, taking you all the way to the main show. It's been fun.
Awesome. And Nina, you're seemingly everywhere on TYT, you're on The Damage Report, you're on Indisputable, Power Hour 2.
Power Hour, yeah.
Exactly, a lot of fun. Yes, always awesome to talk politics with you. Thank you to both of you for joining us.
Thank
and
you.
for those of you at home, second hour is coming up. We're gonna take a short break, but don't go anywhere because JR will be leading you through another awesome hour of news right after this. Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor, or concern for whose toes we might step on, or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
How in the world are you going to get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for them to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse us and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for, if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're gonna do both. We're gonna fight Trump and we're gonna fight the establishment. It's not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
ShopTYT.com has new shirts like this one. And you're thinking, Cenk, what is that one? I can't see it other than the black. Yes, so I'll show it to you. If you can read this, you're not practicing social distancing. Yes! Now, you were practicing social distancing. This is over video. But overall, you get it. ShopTYT.com.
Two things. Welcome to the Young Turks Hour 2. And number 2, drop it. That's correct. We're back for a second hour. We got a couple comedians, a couple smart folks on our hands here. First of all, you guys know Aida Rodriguez with us, first of all. And secondly, Ben Glebe joins us for the second hour of the Young Turks today, you guys. We're gonna go through some trials, some tribulations, some stories, some sad times, some good times. Are you guys prepared for this?
No, but we have to be, you know what I mean?
I mean, you showed up.
Yeah, true that.
What is that guy? What is he? I'm bad with dog breeds. He's a mix.
Oh, I'm on television right now.
He's trying
this
to
is a terrier mix rescue puppy, and he's all right. Let's let him go. It's Henry Horse, and someone's approaching the door, and he's upset. I'm gonna mute myself. Sorry about that.
It's a good indication of whether or not you've gotten a rescue dog, or if you've gotten a purebred dog, if you know exactly what it is. But the fact that it's a mix, you're now off the hook. You're a true lib, Ben. Are you doing good, Aida? How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Missed you guys, missed the TYT audience, and I'm happy to be here. I live another day. Every day I wake up, I'm like, we made it every day.
I feel that way, and it's Friday too, so it's even better. As we know, this is where it's going to get this kicked off right away. Maybe I'll give a second for Glenn to take care of. We didn't get his dog's name. I'm gonna call him like Scotty. His name is Scotty, isn't it? Muted.
Ben, you're muted.
He's been locked out of the room. It's Henry Horse. I'm Ben Glebe. We're back in business. I'm so sorry about that.
We're there. Hey, you know what? It's good we did it off the top rather than in the middle of a story, I always say. Speaking of which, let's start one of those, shall we, you guys? Former President Trump, he has a bone to pick now with former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. Now, what is it that Bibi did to anger the most self-centered man in the entire world? Well, he congratulated President Biden on beating Donald Trump in the 2020 presidential election. Now, Trump went into this, he exposed all of this to writer Barack Ravid as he wrote his book. So he interviewed him, and then Ravid went on Axios to detail some of the things that Trump told him. So let's go straight into that piece that he wrote. This is from Donald Trump. I liked Bibi. I still like Bibi. This is from him as well. I also like loyalty. The first person to congratulate Biden was Bibi. And not only did he congratulate him, he did it on tape, is what Trump told me. He referred to, of course, Netanyahu, and he used his nickname. Trump claimed that he was shocked when his wife Melania shared Netanyahu's video with him. He was very early, like earlier than most. I haven't spoken to him since. F him. Pretty cut and dry. Now, continue on. For Bibi Netanyahu, before the ink was even dry, to do a message, and not only do a message, but to do a tape to Joe Biden talking about their great friendship. They didn't even have a friendship, because if they did, the Obama administration would have done the Iran deal. Wouldn't have done the Iran deal, is what Trump said. And guess what? Now they're going to do it again. There's much more to this, but right away, just the first things that stick out to me are he's worried about whether or not someone is loyal to him enough. So Benjamin Netanyahu has to be loyal to him to a degree that he can't acknowledge the reality of the situation, which actually leads us to why so many people are not acknowledging the reality of the 2020 election, because Donald Trump will get mad at them and say, "You're not my friend anymore." And for some reason, that scares a lot of people. We're gonna find out really fast what Benjamin Netanyahu did from this fear. So he did respond in a statement as well. "I highly appreciate President Trump's big contribution to Israel and its security. I also appreciate the importance of the strong alliance between Israel and the US. And therefore, it was important for me to congratulate the incoming president," is what he said in response to being told, F him. So I guess, we'll start with you, Ida. Should this guy be listened to? And honestly, I feel like Netanyahu probably had more to say, but he does realize exactly how bad this will look if he continues to have this kind of beef out in public, internationally, as a matter of fact.
Well, I mean, that's pretty on brand for Donald Trump, I would say. He definitely maintains his marketing plan as he always has. I think that, when does it end is what I want to know. Like, what our loyalty to the United States and its citizens. People are struggling right now. All these people have died as a result of COVID. So people are broke, crime is up, and we are having conversations about who pissed Donald Trump off this week. It's egregious. And I think that's a presidential thing to do. That is the professional thing to do, is to congratulate the person who just became the president of the United States. I don't even think it was about Donald Trump. It's just what you're supposed to do. So I mean, I can't believe that. I can't believe we're still talking about Donald Trump. I want to get a shirt that says, "I can't believe we're still talking about Donald Trump."
Well, I'm gonna make that go live on my merch store as soon as possible. I will cut you in, Ida. It's unbelievable, the reality that we are living in. And it just again proves, not that we needed more proof, just the unreal narcissism of this man. He says that he betrays his own loyalties and his own disloyalties to the job he was supposed to be doing every time he speaks. To literally say he didn't have any kind of friendship with Biden. If he did, Biden would have never done the Iran deal. First of all, Biden didn't do the Iran deal, Obama did. Secondly, if you're any sort of leader with any care for the job beyond your own personal grievances, you don't do something based on your friendships. You maybe text Netanyahu after and be like, "Sorry, had to do the Iran deal on account of what we think is best for the world." And that Trump not only doesn't get that, but also doesn't get that that's not what you're supposed to say publicly, even if that's what you believe. He just realizes he can burn the world down and everybody will continue loving him, and his same people will. The truest statement he's ever made is that he could shoot someone dead on Fifth Avenue and nobody would complain. And in fact, he put it to the test, and instead he killed hundreds of thousands of us, and he didn't lose any followers. It's unreal. He got more followers by saying, "Isn't it great how tough we are by killing people and not taking measures? If you die from COVID, you're weak and you're a liberal snowflake." I mean, then people believe it and eat it up like it's breakfast. It's a maddening place we're in.
I may even expect his followers to be the type of people who be like, "Eat that up." But what continues to trip me out is the people that have some level of power, the people that do hold office, some people that can have influence in our political stage, and also in the Republican Party that just kind of continue to fold and fold every time this guy tells them what to do. We just talked about Lindsey Graham the other day, who ran to the committee and told everyone, hey, you guys calm down with this whole raising the debt limit. You guys know if we charge up this hill, Donald Trump is gonna be shooting us in the back. Again, this becomes public, and then no one is ashamed. No one says maybe we should reverse course. No one says maybe we should think twice about the way that this direction of this party is going, because I don't know, maybe it's not a problem, because I was gonna say maybe we keep losing, but we're gonna find out in the midterms whether or not that happens, and again in 2024. Really fast, yeah, go ahead, go.
Well, I just want to say that's exactly what happens when you sell the soul of a party. You know, my grandfather, my hero, was a Republican. The last time the Republican Party, this man right there, I don't know if you can't see him, but the last time the Republican Party actually stood for things, and it was a fair argument whether you want big government or small, or big taxes or small. But when you sell your soul and all you're going after is power at all costs, at using the vast majority of the populace to give you more money, more gold for your coffers, and that's your only guiding principle, then yes, you go and say, we should shut down the government maybe actually, guys, and not raise the debt limit, because Trump's gonna be upset, not even the current president, just the guy who we've ceded the control to, the narrative to, the power to. Instead of realizing the guy's not even in office anymore, you could reclaim some degree of backbone, and they're all like, yeah, but probably in case 2024 and power, we might lose it. It's sad, it's disgusting, and I expect no less from a charming man like Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, the sad thing is he understands how many politicians are only attached to power, and he can wield it around.
I want to say one thing, because I really want us to stop positioning these people as Donald Trump's victims. And sometimes we just got to chalk it up to some of these people are just damn right, damn evil, and just trash. And because you know what? Everybody can't be a coward, and everybody can't be afraid of Donald Trump. And some of these people are just complicit in the evil because they benefit so greatly from it financially. And they're not touched by the ills of society that most people, the average American, has to deal with. So they don't care about us. So, I mean, I get it. I think he's a bully, and I think that he does dirty business. But I really want us to stop, to get out of the practice of giving these people a pass and saying that Donald Trump is bullying them, and they're behaving in this horrific manner because they are afraid that there are gonna be consequences. And let's just own up to the reality that some of these people are just garbage.
Well, if I was unclear, just to clarify, I'm not giving them a pass for being bullied. Yeah, I'm saying these guys are evil, soulless, bankrupt people. They just have a henchman that's kind of calling the shot for them. Doesn't make them any better. The Nazis that shot people in the back in front of pits were also taking orders, but they should also be killed for it. So I ain't taking it easy on anybody.
Not you. I wasn't talking about you. I'm just saying every time we hear this conversation about Trump and his flunkies, it's always like everybody's scared of Trump and he bullies people. Some of the people are just garbage. They're just okay not caring about their constituents. They only care about lining their pockets, and they are in line, like you say, they want power, they're greedy for power, they're hungry for power, and they've compromised their principles and their party, and they've traded integrity and principles and the best interest of America for power.
Yeah, bullying is an issue. Sorry, but bullying is a real issue that we need to be concerned about with children, with teens, with people in their 20s, maybe with people who are suffering from mental health issues, who are vulnerable. You don't need to be concerned or compassionate about people who are being bullied when they are in the halls of power and they're saying, I can help fix the country, I can help come to your defense, and are instead letting the bullying make them richer and hurt the lives and sometimes kill the lives of millions and millions of people. That's where my compassion for bullying stops, and I say, grow a pair of whatever you need to grow.
Well, this is the situation now, because this was probably something Donald Trump should have seen coming when it comes to Netanyahu, and now it's F him because he congratulated Joe Biden, which is the most basic thing in the world, like you were saying, Ida. But back in October, right before the 2020 election, if you guys remember, he was trying to get Netanyahu on board with him to do a little bit of verbal public bullying at Biden's expense. so that he'd make sure that he has a little bit more of a lean on him when he was trying to win re-election. So there was an awkward interaction between him and Netanyahu where Netanyahu was not really buying the whole thing. So really fast, another part of this, when Trump held an on-camera call with Netanyahu, this was 10 days before the election. And it was to mark the normalization agreement that he had between Israel and Sudan. And Trump asked Netanyahu whether, quote, Sleepy Joe could have had such a deal. And I want you guys to watch this interaction, watch Donald Trump, and see how Netanyahu didn't give him the energy he wanted, and it just kind of fell apart from there. Let's listen.
Do you think Sleepy Joe could have made this deal, baby? Sleepy Joe. I think, do you think he would have made this deal somehow? I don't think so.
Well, Mr. President, one thing I can tell you is we appreciate the help for peace from anyone in America, and we appreciate what you've done enormously.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he was so upset. Now, by the way, this I want to highlight it for you guys. So, one more time, I just want to show you guys what just happened. Well, let's play this next video.
Sleepy Joe. I think, do you think he would have made this deal somehow? I don't think so.
Well, Mr. President, one thing I can tell you.
Look at Donald Trump's face. He goes, "Are you guys ready to hear this? This is gonna be awesome. He's gonna lay into Biden, and then I'm gonna win this election. Watch." One more time, let's hear that last part, because this is the best.
We appreciate the help for peace.
Damn, this is a fail. Fell apart right in front of me.
In America, and we appreciate what you've done enormously.
Yeah.
Pay attention to if they actually had self-awareness. Netanyahu was not playing the game. He was still being a politician who was like, hey, we're allies with America. Let's not burn any bridges with the next guy that's about to come in. He didn't even know if Biden would win, but he didn't know whether or not it would happen. But what you don't want to do is find yourself on the wrong side with your friends. It's embarrassing.
And Trump just doesn't realize, he clearly doesn't even realize the stakes of being president, of being a world leader, of being the prime minister of Israel. He doesn't realize the stakes. He literally is upset that after he leaves office, that the country of Israel, I'm half Israeli, okay? I know a thing or two about this, that the country of Israel that is so dependent in its security on the United States of America, he expects him to blow up the relationship with the US just because Trump lost the election, and to not continue a relationship with the country that gives them much needed funding for their security. I mean, that is wild. It's just the fact that anybody takes him seriously at this point, it's an IQ test. And you fail. You fail the IQ. They don't even pass fail on those tests, and you fail.
Yeah, it's no consideration at all for the people of Israel. No consideration at all for the trauma that country has experienced and the people of his country, and how everything that is riding on being safe. And the reality of it is the children are watching. The children are watching. Listen to the words that are coming out of this man's mouth. We talk about the people who support him, and right there and then, a lot of those people are lacking a quality education. They're getting their information, through clicking on websites. It's a big problem in this country. Idiocracy was a movie that was made 20 years ago. We're living it right now. And it's a scary place to be here, that we are still having conversations about this man while we're still trying to figure out what we're gonna do about a pandemic. Yeah. And it's downright ridiculous.
And also the people who say that, in some ways, the orange monster was a blessing because he just unearthed all of the racism that was there so we can confront it. It's so ignorant to say that, because yes, he did do that, but he also made it okay again for, like you said, Ida, the younger people, the next generation to start saying that. So yeah, of course there were tons of racists still in this country and tons of people that don't respect all humans equally, but their children saw their parents saying that kind of thing and then saw, but when you go to school and say it, some of your friends don't allow it and some teachers don't allow it, and the president never speaks that way, and it was starting to be phased out of acceptable society. And Trump made it again where they can all be like, I guess there is no daylight between what my pappy says and what the president says, so let's let the racism fly. Let's let the rampant holding of guns on Christmas cards fly. Let's just be as backwards and Wild West as we can because there's no consequences. It's such a massive harm to the nation and to the world. It's a real shame.
And they're more comfortable that way. We gotta take a quick break, you guys. When we get back, we will discuss a few of the revelations that are coming out of this January 6th committee. It seems every day it's happening. These types of things are the ones that are gonna be building and building, in my opinion, but I'm still not buying that we're getting much further than just exposure to it. We'll discuss that when we get back. Hey everybody, what's going on? We got member comments. The section of the show where we talk to you guys, see what you have to say about what's going on in the stories, which usually at the second hour, I end up reading stuff in the first hour. I'm like, what were they talking about? Let's find out. Colorado, this is member comments. Colorado Blue Blazer Regular says, of course Queen Nancy would say that, see, first hour. She's proof positive that you can be a Democrat and a Republican at the same time. Well, Colorado Blue, considering what I've seen Nancy Pelosi do in the past, I think you're right. Now this particular story, we're gonna refer to John for some of the responses to that. Next, Shadowhawk says, yay, Ida, miss you on TYT. How long has it been, Ida? Well, like been a month or so, huh?
Yeah, it's been a minute.
That's a shame, man. What's wrong?
That's because she's a big HBO Max star now with her brand new special fighting words you all should check out.
I wasn't gonna say it, but I mean,
thank you, Ben.
Whenever you leave, you have bigger, better things to do. I understand that. Come on. Next, the Newfie Dragon says, "Oh, see, if you get love for Ida, I gotta read love from me." JR has upped my style. I love the way he always matches his hat, his cap, and stuff. Well, geez, just kind of flailed out there. It was supposed to be inspirational. Now it's just cap and stuff. What else is there but stuff?
And I could have sworn that sentence was going to go, if you're going to share love for Ida, you got to share love for me. But I guess it was just for you. Okay, fine.
No, we did mention, Ben, this is the first time you and I have done the second hour together. You'll learn this about me. Okay, next is Captain Cornball says, to work the cliche, there are a few people in the world of politics who actually play political, quote, three-dimensional chess. Netanyahu was one of the best players for 20 plus years. I guess it's a matter of just being able to see a little bit into the future and realizing how you don't want to position yourself. So yeah, I mean, if nothing else, we probably have a range of politicians that know what they're doing versus don't know. And then Donald Trump comes along and just kind of, we're talking about how he dismantled normal processes and the way society thought we were progressing. He did the same in politics, he kind of exposed the cowardice of many people and actually the evil that they already have. Netanyahu just said, I'm not gonna play it at this point because I need to continue this relationship. Give me the money. Next.
Yeah, but also, quick thought on that is just, I do think Netanyahu is pretty good at it, considering he's positioning himself to take the prime ministership back while on a corruption trial currently. So that's pretty ballsy for sure. But I would say more like he was just basically playing chess, and Trump's the kid that literally realizes he has no pieces left and just knocks the pieces off the board. He's like, I hate chess, never liked it, didn't want to play it.
F him. Next from, that's what he says when he loses. Next, Lou B says what Bibi should have said was, I like presidents who win. F him.
Oh.
There's that. We got a couple of YouTube members, Janice Takashima and Tim M. Lovely, thank you guys. Welcome aboard. We love having you. It's nice, the water's warm, jump in. Super chat comments from Jen Hampton. TYT inspired me to get involved in the labor movement, working hard to organize the food workers in my town. We are Asheville Food and Bev United. Excellent, Jen, thank you very much. And the fact that we inspired you to do it, that's amazing stuff. But also you're doing more work in the streets. That's the tough stuff. We'll be back. Welcome back, you guys. It's like we never left, right?
Right.
Let's dive right back into this next story right away. The January 6th Select Committee that's looking into the insurrection that Donald Trump and seemingly his MAGA crowd tried to carry out continues to uncover new information. And now the latest thing is a little bit more about the planning that potentially went into it from the top down. So let's go straight into this from a Rolling Stone publication. The House Select Committee investigated the January 6th attack on the Capitol on Thursday. They released slides from a PowerPoint that called for former President Trump to declare a national security emergency in order to delay the certification of the results of the 2020 election. So we know there was lots of things going around back and forth about how they were trying to do this. And it's just we're getting more and more of the organizational part of it, because right now, at least from the layman's, from like the outside observer, we saw him do the speech. We saw him bring up several other of his cohorts and minions to speak and rile up the crowd. But they still have this, hey, we didn't tell them to go do this. Hey, we weren't really trying to subvert an election. Hey, we weren't really trying to do things and pre-plan this whole entire thing. This was just an organic movement by a bunch of angry people. So this is where some of these starts coming off the lid. Now, don't forget, Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff, is the person who's been providing some of this information. So it's pretty much legit, even though he is now trying to sue to make it look like he didn't really give this information voluntarily. So details about what was in this PowerPoint presentation. So the presentation, which spanned 38 pages and was titled Election Fraud, Foreign Interference, and Options for 6th of January, was part of an email sent on January 5th, the day before the attack on the Capitol. So some of those things that were in the slides were options for the 6th of January that I mentioned. Vice President Pence seats Republican electors over the objections of Democrats in states where fraud occurred. Should probably throw some quotes on there. Vice President Pence rejects the electors from states where fraud occurred, causing the election to be decided by remaining electoral votes. And Vice President Pence delays the decision in order to allow for a vetting and subsequent counting of all of the legal paper ballots, which of course is they were probably planning trying to make this whole change of the election look like it's a legitimate thing. And before you guys jump in, here were some of the recommendations. Brief senators and congressmen on the foreign interference. So let's bring in some more potentially reputable people so more people will believe it. Declare national security emergency, foreign influence and control of electronic voting systems. Again, they're gonna point out and say that there was foreign influence, which we've heard over and over again, that was completely debunked in court hearing after court hearing. Declare electronic voting in all states that it was invalid. And lastly, legal and genuine paper ballot counts or constitutional remedy delegated to Congress. So that was the plan, or at least that was the plan in this PowerPoint presentation. And when Pence didn't carry out his part of the plan, or maybe he wasn't briefed severely enough, the next step was to go ahead and unleash the foot soldiers. Is this that damning? I mean, I think everything we see coming out of this is pretty damning. But I still don't see it as being something they're gonna really push that hard. We need the next step for the prosecution part about this, for the indictment part about this, for actual consequences to come here, because I think it's pretty obvious that there was planning involved.
Ben, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm angry.
Sure. I mean, I would just like to repeat once more how stupid people that still support Trump now are. I'd like to just make sure I cement that in people's heads. And I mean, the only leeway I will give you is you're either stupid or you've fallen victim to just such horrible disinformation that you can't get out of it. And there are some of those people too, but you're in one of those two camps for sure. There's no smart people that are still hearing evidence come out day after day about direct plans to just overturn the election with no evidence. Someone just came up with a 38-page PowerPoint outlining just shot in the dark ways to overturn what's really happened. And it's just like, it's a brainstorm of ideas. They're like, there's no bad ideas, just whatever you think could overturn the election, send it to us. Their biggest mistake was just sending a 38-page document to Trump just one day before Jan 6th. There's no way he could read 38 pages in one day. You gotta give him 3-4 months for that for sure. You could tackle maybe 2-3 pages a month. I could see they would have had a chance. But that's what saved our democracy, is his slow ability to barely be able to make words out when they're presented to him in print. That's what saved us. It's unbelievable. I mean, just you could say that all digital voting is invalid because foreign governments interfered. Is that true? Who cares? Meadows literally replied to that email saying, I love it. You love what? Subverting the country. You love ruining our democracy to keep this buffoon in office. It's a bunch of hateful, anti-American traitors. And the fact that we consider these to be people that should ever be listened to other than in a sideshow with tomatoes thrown at their face, that's on us. That is on us.
Yeah, that you just made. I'm sorry. You know what I think the worst part about this? Of course, the dog and pony show, for sure. That we don't even have faith that there will be consequences for this. That is the disheartening part of this whole thing. Yeah. You sit at home and you're like, that's gonna happen to these people. They're gonna continue to be in the top percentage of the earners in this country with their great health care, sending their kids to the best schools, living in the best neighborhoods, having access to the best banks and all of the best education and information, and nothing is going to happen to them. They just kept continue to build our resistance for foolishness over and over and over. And now we are just like totally, what is the word? We are desensitized to all of this stuff. So now we're like, we're not gonna do anything to them. They're gonna still be rolling around in their clique, doing the most with the most, while everybody else has to go to work every day and figure it out. That's what burns me the most.
I want you guys to imagine, and if you don't believe what Ida's saying, imagine the day when all of these people who are part of this planning, and including President Trump, part of the planning, part of the execution of this, we're okay with it as it happened, lollygagged and celebrated as it was going on. Imagine them all, because people have these fantasies of politicians from either side of the aisle being walked away in handcuffs. Oh, wait until you're in jail, and they make Photoshop images of people behind bars with their hands on it going like this. And it's not really what's gonna ever gonna happen. So imagine if that actually happens with these guys. What will your feelings be? Will your feelings be, oh, of course? Or would your feelings be, oh my God, they really did it? And would they next be, oh my God, yes, finally? It would all be based in surprise and excitement because you never, ever actually expected that to happen because it never actually happens.
You know what, JR? People's loved ones are dead. We pride ourselves, those people pride themselves in loving law enforcement. Remember the Blue Lives Matter people? Those people that were the officers at the Capitol that have lost their lives and that they were trying to kill, who were the ones who are alive, who will forever be traumatized for that event. Their lives didn't matter. That was not a deal breaker for these people. They turned on those people. There are people who have died, who have taken their own lives. And you know what? Their names were a hashtag for a couple of days and everybody went about their business. So of course now, nobody's gonna be surprised. And even if you see them in handcuffs, what are you gonna say? Oh, they'll be out in a couple of days. What's the big head dude that was Trump's friend that went to jail and then got out? You just know, you're just like, nothing's gonna happen. This is for show. People were scaling the Capitol. That looked like a bunch of children who were not on their medication that were just jumping around a preschool, scaling the building, planning to assassinate the members of our Congress, public office, and nobody thought that this was a big deal. Like we're just building up the resistance. We've just built it up and now nothing surprises us. People are running down the street, smashing people's windows, robbing them. And what are we doing? We're just walking around in the upside down. People have collective trauma. And now we just don't know what's gonna happen because there are no consequences for people who have a lot of money in this country. They don't have consequences. And that just destroys faith. It just destroys it.
100%. I give you a non-denominational agnostic amen on that, Ida. I mean, it is unreal. We have smoking gun after smoking gun and it drops and everybody's like, oh, if only we had evidence. You mean the smoking gun, the actual proof of them trying in multiple ways to overturn the election. I mean, the attack on the Capitol, as you so well put it, my friend, is the most egregious example of specifically trying to overturn the results. And the thing that in the whole trial, in the whole Senate hearing, the original one about Jan 6, that they didn't focus on enough, and they really, really should have, was when Trump, in a press conference a few months earlier, when the polls weren't looking so good for him, was asked, if you lose the election, will you commit to a peaceful transfer of power? And Trump said, we don't know, no guarantees, we'll see. We'll see about a peaceful transfer of power. If that is not directly telling your supporters, if I don't win, you have my permission to take up arms and be not peaceful to stop this transfer of power. That's another smoking gun. The leader can lead without being physically in the building. And then of course, Trump goes 12 steps further, gets the PowerPoint, bunch of BS examples how you can overturn, and then goes a mile away and does a rally where he says, go over there and kick their ass, be peaceful, but kick their ass, kick their ass, kick their ass. I mean, every extra step you would write in, people would be like, this is too much. It's thick. What is this, a soap opera of a president? And it was. Yes. And there's no consequences. It is mind-boggling how low we have fallen. And if they did go to jail, everybody would just say, look at this scam, look at this rigged case, look at this rigged trial, and they'd be more popular, and they'd become the king of America 2 years later.
Look what's happening with the folks that did get arrested. That is exactly what they're supposed to be, heroes, and they're being mistreated. I can't believe they're in jail. Do you understand the conditions in jail? Did you guys know that people have bad food in jail? Did you know people get fights? There's fights in jail. Did you know people get assaulted in jail? All these things suddenly they have these revelations for, and now we need some prison reform, or we need to make sure we have some kind of way to make sure people don't have to deal with these circumstances. But Ben, you had that question that someone asked him about the transfer of power. Even the people that ask those types of questions, they forget why they even asked it. Because if you ask him, are you willing to commit to a peaceful transfer of power, and he says what you said, the very next question should be, so you're saying no? Or under what circumstances would you have a peaceful transfer of power? Does that mean you don't want peace, Mr. President? None of these questions were asked as a follow-up to him literally saying no. I thought you asked the questions so you could then say, well, what do you want? So violence, where's the next thought? Because everyone else hears it and they go, thank you for your time. Now we're gonna have a couple headlines and say this is what Trump said and we said nothing afterwards.
Yep. That is so right. Truth dies in the lack of follow-up questions. It really does. Because everybody's good at sound bites these days, but if you don't pin somebody when you pin them, when you have them against the wall, if you don't pin them and make sure you get that 3 count, then they wiggle out, and Trump's the king of wiggling out. So you have to take a moment like that and say, whoa, 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 whoa. The whole press corps needs to say, stop. You just said you're gonna try to violently overthrow your own government if you lose. Make that the moment. But everybody would rather have ratings and would rather have another chance to get in that press room, another chance to talk to the people in power again. And so they let it slide. They cover it just up to the brink of when it could matter. And then they pull back.
Yeah.
Well,
they don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah, and
they don't want to be subject to the embarrassment that can take place. Because they know he has no limits. They know that he has no shame. So nobody wants, some people just don't want to be embarrassed. They're like, Look at what he did to April. Look what he did to some of the black women and the women and the people of color that asked the tough questions. They became targets.
Speaking
100%. And sorry, go ahead.
No, you have one more thought. We were gonna jump to break. Let me know what you're thinking.
Well, I was just gonna say, and since nobody else wants to plug my stuff, I'll plug my own thing on that exact point. It's about pinning people in debates, right? So I had, if you saw this clip that went viral recently when I debated Charlie Kirk, another right-wing blowhard provocateur who just cares about money and power, on this clip where I asked him if this was really a picture of a human being when I held up a fetus, and he's like, absolutely. And I was like, that's a dolphin fetus. And it went super viral, but that was just one clip. So I'm about to release 12 days of Kirk's an ass. Every day I'm gonna show you a different meme where I just pin this guy over and over and over to show people how to own someone in a debate. When you got him on the ropes, you don't let him go. you got to be merciless when you're fighting for the future, when you're fighting for truth, when you're fighting to stop evil people. You can't just make a point and then lay back and let them recover. You crush them. You have to.
Ben, you're not gonna believe me, but I promise you I was gonna bring that up. I was just thinking, I said, follow-ups, there's someone here who asked a couple of good follow-ups with a purpose and with a reason behind them. So you don't have to believe me, but I was going to.
I believe you.
Plug yourself, it's fine. You know, hey, if you don't sell it, who's gonna buy it? Anyway, so when we come back, we're gonna take a break really fast, you guys. When we come back, speaking of grudges, we were talking about loyalty. Christie had a few revelations about the people he surrounded himself with. And he's not happy about it, but he's probably gonna be okay with it later on. We'll be back after this to talk about that. That's correct. We're back. So are y'all's comments. Here, let's get some Twitch. I never understand Twitch, but we'll read them anyway. Twitch subs, Elder Mind Pulse gifted 50 subs. 50 sounds like a lot. Thank you for the subs, Elder Mind. Blue Tech, the Belgian Dragon, also gifted 50 subs. Thank you very much as well. K the DJ, Intel Dragon, gifted 10 subs. The DJ Intel Dragon. Xtal Spiff gifted 5 subs. Thank you very much for all of our Twitch users over there. Oh, Ben, I got something for you. Ben. Here, member comments. From CBN Norse Dog Dad. He says, Ben, you're right. There's more. Playing chess with Trump.
That's it.
Playing chess with Trump is like playing chess with a pigeon. Both will knock the pieces off the board, scrap all over it, then strut around like they won when they lost. So you got the pigeon.
Yeah, pigeons are very confident. True.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of walk up when you're not actually dropping any food on the ground and just kind of pick around your feet. They're kind of bold, kind of like Donald Trump. Yep. Shadow said that was a great show on HBO Max by Ida. A must see. Laugh out loud for sure. Speaking of that, hold on. Back to you, Ben. Hold on, I got this. Ben is actually performing tomorrow, December 11th at 8 p.m., 5 Pacific. His show is called Glebe Off the Top. And you can get tickets at nowherecomedyclub.com. Am I correct? Did I get that right?
Correct, yeah, yeah, perfect. I do a weekly improvised virtual show that's not political. It's a break from the madness of the week, and we get together and just, it's a whole community, and it's really silly, and I put all these face filters on and play all kinds of wild characters, and I do like an hour and a half on stage. It's really fun, so please do get a ticket at my website, benglebe.com or nowherecomedyclub.com. Join us. Join the mad ones.
Sometimes you need to take a break from the depressing stuff and still go ahead and still have a little bit of fun. It's good for the soul. Let's see, in the last few seconds we've got left, Just Be Anti-Racist said, we already know Trump called the quote war room the night of the 5th several times. In fact, we all know what they all did. Of course we do. We always, when Trump was in office and we knew about the backdoor dealings he was doing and his influence he was using, and he was leaning on world leaders and the things he was, everyone knew all that stuff. But half of the narrative is that they were out to get him and there were witch hunts. Those things became just as much as the normal talking as the facts that were revealed about him. So once you see more facts, the response is, oh, they're just trying to come at me because I did illegal things. Can you believe them? Believe us when we come back after this. we're back. We're gonna jump right in, you guys. We only have about 10 minutes to go before this hour is over. So Christie, former New Jersey Governor Christie, he's not really thrilled about some of the revelations that have come out in Mark Meadows' new book, specifically the stuff that was coming out last week about Trump's hiding his COVID diagnosis, which Mark Meadows and he hid from the entire group that was surrounding him, specifically Christie, who was in his face with spittle flying as they did debate prep for his upcoming debate with Joe Biden. So when he was asked by Margaret Hoover of PBS about exactly how he felt when he discovered in Meadows' book excerpts about what happened, this is what Christie had to say.
You said that your wife, Mary Pat, and you had a quote, interesting reaction when you learned this from Mark Meadows' book. What was that reaction?
I can't believe Mark Meadows didn't tell me. I mean, you know.
You didn't think Trump would have told you?
Well, that's obvious, of course. Trump should have told all of us. I would have worn a mask if I knew that. If Mark Meadows knew that somebody that I was sitting across from for 4 days had popped a positive test, he, as the White House chief of staff, put aside the president for a second. Obviously, the president, as my friend, should have looked at me and told me that. That's obvious. But I think what's less obvious is that Mark Meadows saved this for his book.
Yeah.
He saved it for a book.
So did this confirm for you that you did in fact get it for the president?
Oh, I think it's undeniable. And by the way, 6 of the 7 of us in that room got it.
Yeah.
Hope Hicks, Bill Stepien, Kellyanne Conway, me, Stephen Miller, and Donald Trump all wound up with COVID in that room.
Oh man, there's so many things. There's so many things. I don't want to take them all, but I'm just gonna go off the first one. If you guys missed some of the great points of this, I'm gonna come back to it. But the number one thing was that I'm so mad at Mark Meadows. I can't believe Mark Meadows would not tell me that Donald Trump had COVID and was hiding it from me. Now, Donald Trump hiding it from me, I mean, that's Donald Trump. Of course he would do that. He's a piece of garbage. Why would he tell me? It's like the expectations, whereas Donald Trump is not gonna do the right thing because you know he's not gonna do the right thing. Yet your ass was sitting there doing debate prep with him, screaming in his face. He admitted later in that interview that he had no idea what Donald Trump's testing schedule was, so it must have been him. Yet you still say, oh yeah, of course he ain't gonna tell me. Why would you be around someone that you know would not care about your life enough to not tell you something like that? To this day, this is not an interview from right after he found out. He found this out and he's saying this on TV now. I got more, but I want you guys to go.
I don't trust anybody with that posture. It's just, I don't trust anybody with that posture. But isn't it amazing that as long as Donald Trump doesn't do it to you, it's okay. Yeah. So he's offended that he put him at risk. But never mind the hundreds of thousands of Americans who have been at risk in the last couple of years from all of the misinformation and them politicizing this pandemic and this virus. But don't do it to me. He was so offended. And that's why, for me, that's why these public servants, I label them garbage. Because your job is to care about the rest of the country, but it's like, oh man, how could he do this to me? Whether it's Mark Meadows or Donald Trump, he is mad about his own hide. But what about the rest of the people in this country who don't have all of the things that he has? And it's amazing to me how Donald Trump is cool as long as he doesn't do it to you.
That is such a good point. That is such a good point. I mean, that's another example of where the journalism fails as well. When the person says to you, I just couldn't believe my friend didn't tell me, breathed in my face, his chief of staff didn't tell me. You have to, it's your obligation as a journalist to reply, isn't that exactly what he did by telling the nation you don't have to wear a mask? Yep. Isn't it? And so why do you only care when it's your hide? Make the point Ida just made to the face of this lawmaker. If you think that Christie, because he's good at, talking around these issues and he's definitely more charming at least than Trump himself, is any better, I've got a closed bridge to sell you because this guy is garbage. Remember when he said all this junk about how horrible and dangerous Trump was, and then he loses to him in the election, and instantly he's his best friend. And he goes to the White House and he goes, Trump, I wanted to get steak, and Trump's like, you're having chicken, and so I had chicken. He just decides for me what I eat, and it's just his way. It's what he does. He's my buddy. He's still calling him his friend. He's my friend. He's your friend. He's trying to kill people. He's trying to overthrow our democracy. The fact that Christie himself still says he won't rule out voting for Trump if he gets the nomination makes him complicit. 100% complicit in every death going forward. If our democracy fully crumbles, that's on Christie. It's on all these people that don't put a line in the sand because they know better than the disinformation. So they just fall in the stupid and evil category.
Well, and also, by the way, he was the other part of that. He was upset. Mark Meadows. He did it for a book. Did it for a book. Like, you don't know what these guys do, that they're doing it for money and influence and power. You think they're not doing it for a book? Speaking of books, Christie did a book tour and talked about some revelations from the Trump stuff. And in fact, there was something related to the COVID stuff. Let's go to that really fast, because Maggie Haber in the New York Times pointed this out when he was going on that. Mr. Christie revealed, this is when he was on his book tour, how worried he and others were for his survival. This is when he was sick with COVID. And when he became infected with coronavirus after being at the White House around the same time that Mr. Trump and several other aides contracted COVID-19. Mr. Christie writes that his priest arrived in the hospital and rubbed oils on his forehead in the sign of the cross, praying over him. For those of you who don't realize what that may look like, it means you're gonna die. No, maybe it saved him. The blood of the oil got him. And then, so the last part of this kicker of this is he got a call from a hospitalized Mr. Trump. They're both in a hospital, who had one main concern to Christie. Are you gonna say you got it from me, Mr. Christie? Mr. Trump asked him. So the concern from Donald Trump was, hey, you're gonna tell everybody that you got this from me? Because that's a little bit of an admission, saying that because I gave it to you, because I had it. But Christie didn't pick up on that either. So when you're lying in bed and the priest comes in and says, you're about to die, and you get a call from your best friend, it says, hey, Chris, are your last words gonna be, you got it from me? You might wanna rethink who your friends are, but he still can't.
Yeah, yeah, and it's exactly what he's accusing Trump and Mark Meadows of doing now. It's literally him saying, I can't believe he didn't tell me that he exposed me to a deadly virus. And then he gets that call from Trump. He knows it was Trump, and he doesn't go on television and say, wait, hold up. Guess what? This guy that almost killed me, because it was touch and go for Christie in the hospital too for the first couple of days. He gave it to me. He's lying to all of us. If you don't go screaming for the hills at that point, Soylent Green is people, you're responsible for those deaths as well. He saved it for a book. Christie saved it for this interview.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yep. Yes, and more yes. Yes. It's a clown show. It's what Malcolm X said, the dog and pony show. This is what it is. This is what they were talking about. And we're watching it play out. The Truman Show, whatever you want to call it. It is a clown show. And we have been so indoctrinated and programmed to constantly seek content and to keep our phones in our faces. We don't realize that these macaroons are trying to overthrow our democracy in the name of greed and power. And we're not even paying attention to it. It's playing out in front of our very own eyes, and we are just sitting here watching it now. We don't even do anything anymore. We're just like, oh, yeah, Donald Trump just said F the prime minister of Israel. Okay,
yeah. Yeah, and not only is it all of those things, the Dog and Pony Show and the Truman Show, but maybe even more aptly, it's The Apprentice, and Trump has fired all of us. And the only person left standing after the crumble of our nation will be Omarosa being like, I recorded all of it, I got it. That'll be all that's left.
That's the way it works. Now, the entertaining part is when Christie does run for president, and if Donald Trump decides, which I don't think he will, to run as well, now suddenly the friendship is definitely gonna end again, because now it's about power. Now it's about the full power. This is when they actually start butting heads, and if he loses again to him in any kind of primary, then he'll go back to following him around on tarmacs, getting told to go back home. Remember that one? Go home, Chris, go home.
Dry cleaning, remember?
Oh,
when it was
God, oh God. It's so many things. It's so many times. You almost forget. As you point out, we go straight back to the next news cycle or into our phones or into some kind of way to escape the madness. And that's why it keeps on turning. That's why Mitch McConnell can say the things he says, how blatantly he's against any kind of progress for Congress to make. And then the next moment complains about how Congress doesn't make any progress. It's the common sense things that you would think when you see someone say something and you assume that the result will be there, and we just don't expect it. Like, it's halfway our fault. And I don't know how you collectively change that. Maybe one day, or I don't know. Maybe it takes a pandemic that kills hundreds of thousands of Americans. No, not that either. Can't figure out what can make people actually realize who's against you and who's actually for you. We'll be for you guys. We got a couple more seconds before we go to our bonus episode where we'll have a few more fun stories to talk about. Actually, we'd like to lay it back a little bit, get a chance to talk about two of my favorite people that are gonna have more in-depth things to talk about, specifically a couple Karens. We'll see you guys. You know, old school was pitched to me from Jank. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying,